welcome back to our podcast. I'm the Disturbed Southern Belle.
And I'm the gentleman.
We're going to be starting a short series on some disturbing stories in the world of music. On this first episode, I'm going to be talking about a few classical composers and some weirdness that sort of surrounded them. We'll say that. So the first one I'm going to talk about is someone known as, his name is Jean Marie Leclerc. Now, he was this famous in his time, and I guess still is, just depending on your type of music, French violin virtuoso and composer. Throughout his life, he was an accomplished musician, and like many composers, he had a strong personality, and it made him basically, we'll say, make a few enemies along the way, because he kind of rubbed people the wrong way, you might say. So when he was found murdered with 3 stab wounds in his back, it wasn't unexpected, we shall say. But the question was, who did it? So Jean Marie Leclerc was born in Lyon, France, and began playing violin and dancing from an early age. He performed the Lyon Opera and later moved to Turin to continue his dance training. He was master of ballet at the Turin Opera when he published his first set of violin sonatas in 1723. In 1728, his first wife died, and then in 1730, he remarried Louise Roussel. And she was this music engraver who would help him publish the rest of his compositions. So beginning in 1738, Leclerc entered the service of Princess Anne of Orange from the Netherlands, who was this harpsichordist taught by Handel. So eventually he returned to Paris, where he was hired by his last patron, which was the Duke of Gramont. In 1758, he and his second wife divorced, and after the divorce, he lived alone in a northeastern suburb of Paris that was known to be pretty dangerous, let's say. So despite offers of lodging from the Duke of Gramont, Leclerc stayed in his less than ideal neighborhood. So he was living in this dangerous area, and they offered to let him stay somewhere else. He refused. So at approximately 6 a.m. on October 23rd, 1764, Leclerc's gardener, Jacques Passant, gathered a group of neighbors to go in to the composer's house after discovering an open gate and his employer's wig and hat on the ground. So he sees the gate open, the hat and wigs laying there, so he gets some people to go with him to go see what's up, basically.
Right.
So they go in and they find Leclerc dead with 3 stab wounds in his back, and they immediately call Louise Roussel, which was his former wife, and Louise Quinet, a musician, as well as Leclerc's son-in-law. So they call the family in, basically. So the first suspect is the gardener, Passant. His testimony was found to have several inconsistencies. He misreported the time, and he told the police that Leclerc had no money and didn't own a watch. Both statements were found to be false. When he discovered Leclerc's body, he stated that Leclerc probably died from a colic attack, a spasm of pain from a muscle contraction, despite the obvious stab wounds in the blood.
Well, that's not suspicious at all.
It's kind of, yeah. He even suggested that the composer's patron, the Duke of Gramont, could be the murderer. However, the dishonesty of Passant could also be explained. He had a previous police record for minor crimes and might have been nervous that he would be suspected. In the end, he was released, and it's likely he wasn't the killer. Now, notice I said likely,
Right.
so we don't know. The next suspect was his son-in-law, Louis Quinet. He came to Paris as a musician and would often ask Leclerc to get him a position serving for the Duke of Gramont. When Leclerc continuously refused, he became bitter and would often write insulting letters to Leclerc, several of which were found in Leclerc's apartment. He even insulted Leclerc to the police and surgeon who performed the autopsy, saying Leclerc had only received what he deserved, having always lived like a wolf. So that's
also not suspicious
and
at
that's
all.
stupid to say. When questioned, he gave a false alibi and was even discovered trying to alter witness testimonies. When investigating Quinet, police began to suspect a plot involving Leclerc's ex-wife, Louise Roussel, and because she was close with Quinet, and it was known that she disliked Leclerc after their failed marriage. She had recently fallen into hard financial times, so she stood to gain from his death. In fact, after the murder, she published his remaining compositions and then sold off all of his belongings. So,
Jesus.
In the end, the investigation was ended without arresting a murderer, and the case remains unsolved to this day. Was it the jealous son-in-law, the resentful ex-wife, the lying gardener? Those 3 people have historically been the main suspects of suspension.
It was all three. It was a conspiracy. They all
So,
plotted to
right.
do it.
Some wonder if it was his younger brother, also named Jean Marie. Jean Marie's younger brother was also a violinist and a composer, and the murder composer was known as he was known as Jean Marie the Elder, and the other was known as Jean Marie the Younger. I thought it was stupid. They both had exactly the same name, basically. I might imagine the younger brother saying, like, no, I'm not the jerk you think I am. I'm Jean Marie the Younger with the elder Marie out of the way. The younger could possibly claim his own reputation. So, possible, right? But we don't know. So nobody knows who did it. They just found him dead, 3 stab wounds, bam, 1700s. There you go. So the next one I'm going to talk about is Carlo Gesualdo. And he was a notable composer during a pivotal period for classical music, and his style reflects this era. He was born on March 30th, 1566 in Venosa, a town in the province of Potenza, Italy. Italian culture and the arts flourished throughout the region during the Italian Renaissance, and it lasted from 1400 to 1600, and was a time when the traditional vocal and choral music flourished. He was born into a prominent noble family, and one of his ancestors was given the title of Count of Conza. This title confirmed the nobility status of the family, leading them to become important figures in Venosa. His father, Fabrizio II, married Pope Pius IV's niece, Jeromina, in 1561, which I guess is a big brag there, too, which caused the family line to inherit control over the Principality of Venosa, granted by the King Philip II of Spain. So Gesualdo was named after his uncle Carlo Borromeo, who was the second born of the Gesualdo family. Borromeo was the son of Pope Pius IV, thus earning him a noble reputation. He was canonized in 1610, meaning that he was officially recognized and declared a saint by the Catholic Church and becoming a holy individual worthy of public worship. There are very few records that tell historians about his early life, but it's known that he did not live a very cheerful childhood. His mother died when he was around 7 years old, and he was left under the care of his uncle, Alfonso, who was the Archbishop of Naples. He, however, grew up thinking he did not have to worry about inheriting the estate and becoming an heir. However, in 1584, his brother Luigi died, leaving him with responsibility over the family line. This marked a major turning point in his life. He was assigned to marry Maria de Avalos in 1586 to fulfill his responsibility as heir. Maria was his first cousin, was twice widowed, and significantly older than him. Despite bearing a son to the Gesualdo name, she went behind her husband and took part in an affair. Her partner, Fabrizio Carafa, was the Duke of Andria, a man of extreme importance and influence. And after this, Gesualdo's life would never be the same. His anger caused him to set up a trap with other individuals aware of the affair. So he gets together with some other people who know she's having this affair, and they're going to do something. So on October 16, 1590, he planned to catch his wife and Carafa in bed and conduct a despicable act, one that would go down in history and stain his legacy forever. A double murder. Despite the atrocious act, Gesualdo was not charged with murder. It was extremely common for Italian noblemen during the late Renaissance period to kill their wife if they proved them to be unfaithful. So whether his act of violence was due to jealousy or due to pure tradition, historians will never know. But we do know today is that the murder was beyond gruesome, probably causing him to spiral into a dark abyss of madness. Interestingly enough, if you listen to a lot of sections of his work, you can see how his mental state made its way into his music. Rumors spread like wildfire all across the Venosa. His hands dripping with blood, he fled the city to his family's country fortress, to escape the wrath of the people he killed's families, basically. Claims that he was mentally ill damaged his reputation, with some records even falsely suggesting that individuals that Gesualdo killed included her infant son, but they said that actually didn't happen. Nevertheless, the double murder was a huge scandal, especially for the upper class in Venosa, quickly becoming a subject for numerous writers and artists. For example, Giambattista Marino, a well-known Italian poet born in Naples, loved to reference the music of his time in his poetic works. Marino, after hearing the death of Maria, contributed to an anthology of sonnets that mourned her passing. Gesualdo, in an effort to relieve himself of his sins, had commissioned a painting that depicts the murders in a holy light. The painting was meant to atone for his sins and possibly return to the pedestal of nobility. However, the title of murderer would forever be latched onto him like a leech, no matter how far he tried to run. In 1591, he officially acquired the title Prince of Venosa after his father died, leaving the estate fully under his control. 3 years after his ascension as prince, he married his second wife, Eleonora d'Este, and she was the sister of the Duke of Ferrara. So naturally, the wedding was held in Ferrara. The wedding caused a huge shift in his life from darkness, but it was not because of his love life. He was originally very immersed and interested in the music from the Este court in Ferrara. Despite going to Ferrara to pick up his new wife as per the wedding contract, he, in his mind, was traveling there as a composer and a musician. He loved the atmosphere there, and during his time there, and he actually published his first 2 books of the madrigals by Ferrara in the years 1595 and 96. As for the marriage itself, he did not care for it as much as he did for the music and culture. He left Ferrara without his wife after the wedding ceremony and remained away for several long months, as you do. He eventually returned home to Venosa with his new wife in 1597, and just like that, his life turned to darkness again. He was no longer surrounded by the perfect atmosphere experienced in Ferrara, and historians assume that coming back to such a bleak home in Venosa caused him to return to madness. He was horrible to his new wife, Eleanor, and it was reported that he not only cheated on her, but he also physically abused her. However, while he was mentally unstable at the time, the allegations regarding domestic violence are extremely vague, and the documentations are incredible. Which, back in those days, I guess so. This is the 1500s, so
Right.
who knows? Eleanor disliked her husband with just as much vigor, but never showed any signs of potential affairs. The same cannot be said about him. He had 2 concubines, Ariella and Polyslandra. His intimacies with the 2 women became so severe, extreme, and outright disgusting to the point where Eleanor accused them both of witchcraft.
That's awful hypocritical,
I don't
though.
know. She supposedly wouldn't do anything, but still, I have no clue why
Him having killed his first wife over that, and then turning around and doing the exact same thing to his second.
Exactly. I mean,
very hypocritical.
I have no clue where the witchcraft, but some claims were even made that the 2 were using sorcery and potions to coerce him into seduction, and that's what caused him to have the affairs. So sure. The trial was quick since the women admitted to being guilty. However, in an effort to protect them from execution, Gesualdo had them imprisoned within his own castle. Afterwards, life in the estate fell back into a bleak shadow. His only solace in life was composing music. In 1611, he published his last 2 books of madrigals. Then just years later, on September 8th, he died. His 5th and 6th books were especially unique due to their composition and style, as well as how late they were published. Although he personally claimed that the final books were composed during the 1590s, similar to the publication of his others, it is known that his final works and their styles became even more pronounced when analyzed against the shifts in musical aesthetics during the late 16th century. His final works crossed the bridge from the Renaissance period into the emerging Baroque period. The Renaissance period, characterized by its predilection for vocal and choral music, reveled in modal harmonies, polyphonic textures. Meanwhile, the emergence of the Baroque era music embraced tonal music, which was music that relied on major and minor scales in contrast to traditional modes. Since he was transitioning from both periods, his final works serve as a synthesis of his 2 styles. He maintains both, basically. His brilliance in composition and stylistic amalgamation positions him as one of the most influential composers of his time. So, his style has undoubtedly played one of the most pivotal roles in shaping Western classical music for years to come. He has fused 2 of the most influential music eras in history, challenging composers of his time to express themselves in more distinctive and emotional ways. It's no surprise that he inspired many other composers, but he sounded like he was a little bit of a nut.
Absolutely.
I don't know. So he killed his wife and stuff. Like I said, they said it was common. Heck, it probably was. But he kills his first wife and her, because she's having an affair, runs off, gets with another woman, starts having an affair. The wife accuses him of witchcraft. They plead guilty, and then they're imprisoned in his castle. So what? I mean, it's so crazy.
The whole situation is just kind of stupid.
Nutty. It's nutty. It's just nuts. I mean, it is. Jesus. But anyway, we hope you enjoyed that first segment. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. And don't forget to stay disturbed.